welcome to Lesson 4 of Module 4, Theories and Laws. Firstly, we're going to complete our do now. So I want you to recall the difference between a scientific law and a theory, and if you can, identify some specific features of a law. In this video, we're going to be looking at now focusing on scientific laws, and we're going to look at what leads to the acceptance of a scientific law. There are 4 laws which we're going to discuss in this video, which can and are mandated from the syllabus, and we see these as Newton's second law of motion, Avogadro's law, the law of superposition, and Mendel's law of dominance. And again, we're going to be looking at our learning intention about gathering information and evidence used to support scientific ideas. So a scientific law is a statement based on the empirical collection of data. It's usually expressed with a mathematical equation, and it aims to describe what is happening at that moment of time when the phenomenon is being observed. What is good about scientific laws is that it can be used to predict future events under similar or different circumstances. And a law here, we can see on the left that this diagram represents the acceptance of a law, and it's based on the collection of numerical data applied into an equation to obtain similar results in all of the tested situations. And going through these observations, we're always going through this scientific method, which allows us to undertake that process of testing the scientific law. So the first law we need to know is Newton's second law of motion, and it's the idea that the force applied to an object is proportional to the mass of the object and its acceleration. And the key formula here is F equals ma. And we're going to be looking at that in more detail in our practical activity in the classroom. So we're going to pause this video now and look at Newton's second law in detail. The next law we need to know is Avogadro's law, and it's equal volumes of gases under the same conditions of temperature and pressure contain equal numbers of molecules. And we can see here that V over N equals K, and so K is proportionally constant, and V is the volume of gas, and N is the amount of substance of the gas. And again, we're going to be looking at this YouTube video to look at Avogadro's law in more detail. And then the other laws we need to know, these, the first two rely, kind of apply to the same situation, and then we've got our fourth one underneath. So the law of original horizontality, and it's where layers of rocks formed in the horizontal position, and any deviation from this position is due to later disturbance. And the law of superposition goes on the back of the law of original horizontality, where layers of rocks are arranged in a time sequence, with the oldest layers at the bottom and the youngest layers at the top, unless later disturbance affects this arrangement. And then our fourth law is the law of dominance, where one factor of the inherited trait will be dominant and the other one recessive. We're going to watch this video on the law of superposition. And we can see here that this law, actually in practice, we can see on the left just the oldest at the bottom, youngest at the top. But we can also use that when we're looking at fossils and relative dating. We can see that fossil D down in the fourth layer would be older than fossil A up in layer 1, which is closer to the top. And then we're looking at the law of dominance in this video here. So our activities for today include completing this research table, which we're going to do collaboratively in the classroom. We're going to be looking at what the statement is, how it was developed, what was the evidence that was used to support the law, any experiments that were undertaken, and then what is the conclusion of this law. And we're going to be looking at Newton's second law in a practical investigation in the classroom using pulleys to see if we can in fact predict using F equals ma. So most of our video today involves watching other people explain these ideas and these laws in more detail, but making sure that at the end you're completing all of the activities to ensure you can complete the Google form with the practice questions, and as always updating your inquiry question log for your summary notes. And in this one we're looking at what leads to the acceptance of a scientific law. Make sure you're tuning in for video 5.